So President Trump did an address to the nation from the Oval Office a couple nights ago. And my prediction beforehand was that he was going to announce the border is a national emergency and he's planning on authorizing the building of the border wall without congressional approval. That was my prediction. Let's see if I was right.
My fellow Americans, tonight I am speaking to you because there is a growing humanitarian and security crisis at our southern border. Every day, Customs and Border Patrol agents encounter thousands of illegal immigrants trying to enter our country. We are out of space to hold them, and we have no way to promptly return them back home to their country. America proudly welcomes millions of lawful immigrants who enrich our society and contribute to our nation. But all Americans are hurt by uncontrolled illegal migration. It strains public resources and drives down jobs and wages. Among those hardest hit are African Americans and Hispanic Americans. Our southern border is a pipeline for vast quantities of illegal drugs, including meth, heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl. Every week, 300 of our citizens are killed by heroin alone, 90% of which floods across from our southern border. More Americans will die from drugs this year than were killed in the entire Vietnam War. In the last 2 years, ICE officers made 266,000 arrests of aliens with criminal records, including those charged or convicted of 100,000 assaults, 30,000 sex crimes, and 4,000 violent killings. Over the years, thousands of Americans have been brutally killed by those who illegally entered our country, and thousands more lives will be lost if we don't act right now. Law enforcement professionals have requested $5.7 billion for a physical barrier. At the request of Democrats, it will be a steel barrier rather than a concrete wall. This barrier is absolutely critical to border security. It's also what our professionals at the border want and need. This is just common sense. The border wall would very quickly pay for itself. The cost of illegal drugs exceeds $500 billion a year, vastly more than the $5.7 billion we have requested from Congress. The wall will also be paid for indirectly by the great new trade deal we have made with Mexico.
So that last point is utterly made up by Trump. He's trying to find a way to save face because he said repeatedly on the campaign trail that Mexico is going to pay for the wall. It is a stone-cold fact that Mexico is not going to pay for the wall. So what does he do? He says, we renegotiated NAFTA, and that renegotiation is going to save us a tremendous amount of money. So you could say that, in a way, Mexico is going to pay for the wall. Okay, that's not at all how it works, but let's take your argument at face value for a second and just grant you that that is how it works. Then why do you have to ask for money from Congress as you're doing right now for the wall? Like, you didn't stop to take 2 seconds to break it down and go, this is just, not only does it make no sense, it's incoherent. If you already had it paid for by NAFTA 2.0, which, by the way, is almost exactly the same as NAFTA, and it's incredibly shitty, but if you can pay for the wall with NAFTA 2.0, then you don't need to go to Congress to ask for the money because you're paying for it with NAFTA 2.0. See, the reality is that's not how it works, and of course he isn't paying for it with NAFTA 2.0. Now, beyond that, listen, guys, he's doing an Oval Office address, and the main issue he's harping away on here is undocumented immigration. He thinks that this is like the number one scandal plaguing the country. Did Donald Trump give an Oval Office address because anywhere between 32,000 and 45,000 Americans, depending on which year you look at, die every year because they don't have access to basic health care? Did he do an Oval Office address because 3 million people lost their health insurance so far in his presidency? Did he call, did he do a national address and call a national emergency because 76% of the country is living paycheck to paycheck, or half of workers in America make $30,000 a year or less? Is he calling a national emergency for the fact that our infrastructure gets a grade of D+, and that Flint, Michigan doesn't have clean water, and that, many places around the country don't have clean water? No. So there's about, honestly, if you're making a list of the top national emergencies, I don't think the situation at the border and undocumented immigration, I honestly don't think it cracks the top 25 of, oh my God, this is one of the most pressing issues that we face. So it's just, he's working backwards from his conclusion, and his conclusion is, I don't like undocumented immigrants, and I'm going to stress this whole thing about law and order, even though he violates, and the U.S. government violates international law 17 times before brunch on a Tuesday. So it's just the priorities are just fucking stupid. And I want to break down more of what he said there. Now, he spoke about, he always does this. As he's talking about undocumented immigration, he'll weave back and forth between violent crime and undocumented immigration. Then he'll give specific examples of, violent crimes, and he tries to link it to the issue of the border wall and the issue of undocumented immigration. But of course, that's just anecdotal garbage, and if you really want to be empirical about this and objective about this, you have to go to the data. And the data shows that, in fact, it was literally a right-wing group, a Cato Institute study, which found that natural-born U.S. citizens are way more likely to commit crime than documented immigrants and undocumented immigrants. So the crime rate of natural-born citizens is higher than that of, undocumented immigrants. And if you listen to Donald Trump and everything he's ever said on this issue, you'd believe the opposite. You'd think there's these marauding MS-13 gangs that we just let in here, and they start taking over towns and cities. And that's just not true. In fact, there was a great article earlier this morning about how a lot of the people that Trump wants to turn away, and a lot of these undocumented immigrants, are literally escaping from MS-13. Women and children escaping from MS-13. And then he gives these speeches about how MS-13 is so terrible and so bad, and we all agree that they're so terrible and so bad, but then the policy action you take from that is, I got an idea. Let's not help the people who are fleeing from that horrendous group that I hate as well. It's so backwards, man. So, but also, you want to talk about a moot point. Hey, Don, you know what the Obama administration did? They had a commitment to deporting undocumented immigrants who were violent criminals. You know what the official position of most Democratic Party members is, and most elected Democrats is? The official position is, yeah, we're in favor of deporting undocumented immigrants who are also violent criminals. Like, this is not, he brings it up as if there's, to that specific point, as if there's a counter to it, and people, like, there's this giant tidal wave of people on the left who are like, well, obviously, we should let in all undocumented immigrants who are violent criminals and accommodate them like there's no tomorrow. Nobody ever said that, and the policy, in fact, is the exact opposite. So, I mean, he's building a straw man about what his opponents believe just to knock it down. And even this idea, he goes on to talk about how Democrats are for no border security. That's just not true. Every proposal, and I'm not a fan of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. I hate them. Everybody knows that. But every proposal that they've put on Trump's desk, it spends billions of dollars on new border security. They just don't agree on the idea of a wall. So, I mean, it's ridiculous the way he frames it, and it's ridiculous that he pretends like people are arguing for keeping in the country undocumented immigrants who are violent criminals. That's who I'm in favor of deporting. That's who most people are in favor of deporting. Most Democrats are in favor of supporting. That was the stated policy of the Democratic Party. So you just build this straw man to knock it down and try to pretend like Democrats are just so, pie in the sky, unicorn fairy dust, open borders people, when I can't name a single Democratic official who's literally in favor of open borders. So on that very narrow point, there's agreement. So what the fuck are you talking about? But beyond that, everything else he says is just utter garbage. Like, for example, he says, well, it's a strain on our natural resources. I love this argument because it flips the reality right on its head, and it builds on a stereotype, which is comical. The idea that, well, obviously when people get here, they're lazy. Let's face it. These are lazy people who just come here to mooch off of our welfare state. That's the thing that I'm sure many of you have heard endlessly, especially if you're in debates with right-wingers. And the reality is undocumented immigrants pay $12 billion in taxes. $12 billion. Now, normally, if somebody's a citizen, they pay taxes and they get some services back in response. Of course, a lot of the money goes towards shit we don't like endless wars and corporate welfare, but you get some stuff in response if you're paying taxes. Not undocumented immigrants. They pay $12 billion in taxes. Here's what they do not get. Children's health insurance program. Disability, also known as supplemental security income, SSI. Food stamps, which is the SNAP program. Health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and welfare. That's what they don't get. So now stop. Though that's the reality. Now stop and think about again what the narrative is and what you've been told endlessly. You were told the opposite of that. You were told that they come in here and all they want to do is just fucking eat Cheetos and watch TV all day and they don't work. Nothing could be further from the truth. The only thing that they're getting is emergency medical care, but to which my response to these people would be, would you rather us not give them emergency medical care? Actually, you know what? Don't answer that. Because some people would say, yeah, no, fuck them. Let them bleed out in the street. I don't give a shit. Well, how civilized of you. And these are usually the people who rant against how other civilizations are not enlightened, but they would openly argue for, let's just let them bleed out in the middle of the street. I don't give a shit. 75% of the American people think immigration is a net positive. So it's not like Trump is speaking up for this silent majority. In fact, the majority position is the opposite. Now, don't get me wrong. He is representing his base. There's no doubt about that. He's representing his base here who agree with him on the wall a zillion %. But 75% of the country thinks immigration is a net positive. Now, you could say, well, Kyle, they mean legal immigration. Okay, that's an interpretation of the numbers. Fair enough. But it's also the case that the wall is unpopular as well. So here, I'll read you the fairly recent numbers on the wall. 77% of Republicans favor the wall. Only 20% are against it. But 60% of Americans overall are against the wall. Only 38% support it. Dude, if you want to talk about how, oh my God, there's all these social ills and this violent crime that's connected to what's happening with drugs, everybody agrees with you. But your solution to it is more of the problem. This idea, just ramp up the war on drugs. Build a fucking wall, which, by the way, most of the drugs, it's not like they get snuck across the border by people carrying it. No, it comes in through cars, through a checkpoint where they miss it. What the fuck are you talking about? But, to ramp up the war as if... this time we'll get it. We've wasted over $1 trillion on the war on drugs, and guess what? More people are doing drugs now than there were beforehand. And violent crime has gone up as a result of it. This isn't... the idea that we treat this like, oh my goodness, how surprising. We ramped up the war on drugs, and it turns out the problem got worse. We've known that this was going to happen. Any expert will tell you, look at what happened with Prohibition. When we had alcohol prohibition, violent crime spiked. It shot through the roof. Why? Because you ban something, so that means by definition it's going to be on the black market. And then who runs the marketplace when it's on the black market? Criminal gangs. And so how do you fix the problem? Legalize it, tax it, and regulate it. You put the cartels out of business in the case of the drug war if you do that. But instead, they're going to give the cartels more power by just militarily cracking down on it even more. So it really drives me crazy that he tries to take these two issues and put them together. And by the way, most of the undocumented immigrants who are even in this country just overstay their visas. So they fly in. Again, it's this weird thing, this weird alternate reality that they've created of it's obviously all of them are sneaking across the border. And no, it's like they didn't even bother to stop and learn about the issue that they're talking about, and Trump obviously didn't do that. So, but to conflate the issue of the drug war with, immigration is just a really cynical fucking ploy. If you really want to fix all the social ills that are linked to the drug war, legalize, tax, and regulate drugs. And then also, by the way, if you do that, one of the things that happens is the fucking mega cartels no longer basically run giant areas of Mexico, among other places, and then you no longer have a functional narco state, and perhaps you can get some legit law and order in those countries where, Mexico and other countries, they could start, rebuilding and taking care of their own business, and then you won't have as many refugees fleeing. And that's another point to be made in this, is if somebody's seeking asylum, that's not illegal. And a lot of the people who are coming here, yes, they are seeking asylum. Now, that doesn't mean you let everybody in, no questions asked. No, you have a process for sure. But this denial of, desperate people escaping a situation and perhaps we should help them, it's just dumb. So, I mean, obviously, I disagree with this guy massively on everything he's proposing here, but let's get to the most important point. Was I right? Well, actually, I'm happy to say I was not right about what he announced in the speech. In fact, in the speech, he just did more, fear-mongering and acting like, oh my God, this is the biggest crisis ever. But he did not say, I'm going to act alone and I'm going to declare a national emergency. In fact, he's still trying to work with Democrats and have Democrats give him his wall, basically, which is not going to happen. So, I did eventually become right, though, because the day after his speech, here's what he said about the course of action that I thought he was going to announce.
What's your current thinking on a national emergency? Why didn't you announce it last night, and when might you?
Because I think we might work a deal, and if we don't, I may go that route. I have the absolute right to do national emergency if I want.
What's your threshold for when you might make that?
My threshold will be if I can't make a deal with people that are unreasonable.
So that's what I thought he was going to announce for the Oval Office address. I thought he was going to say, I'm officially declaring a national emergency, and I'm going to build the border wall without congressional approval for funding for it. That's what I thought he was going to announce. Again, thankfully I was wrong, but he's saying here, like, no, if they don't let me build my wall, then I'm just going to do that. I might go that route if I consider what they're saying unreasonable. And, news came, we'll get to this story in just a little bit, but Trump had a meeting with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, and he just stormed out in the middle of it. And, the point is, the idea is, they're not going to actually give him a wall. Again, they'll throw billions of dollars at border security, but just not a wall. So, if what he's saying here is true, then I guess eventually he's going to say, okay, I'm just going to declare a national emergency and build it. Which, hopefully in response to that, and I think there will be a lot of litigation, and it might even go all the way up to the Supreme Court, and it'll be fascinating to see what happens, because then we get into a legal question of what constitutes an emergency. Like, what can you call a national emergency? And, as I already pointed out earlier, there's a list of, at least 20 other things that are bigger emergencies. So I don't know what kind of leeway you can give to the president to go at it alone here, especially when there's funding that needs to be authorized in order to build it, because in the Constitution, Congress has to approve of the funding. So, I think it would be slapped down in a federal court, but you never know, because if the federal courts are packed with massively conservative judges, then maybe it doesn't get slapped down.